Hi everybody, and welcome back to Freaking Jeep. If you're following or watching this one, you're interested in doing a heater core in a WK or an 05 Grand Cherokee. I'm going to use the cheap method. I'm not going to go through pulling the whole dash out. It's very time consuming pulling a dash out and kind of tedious and very frustrating, especially when you're by yourself. So I'm going to do the cheap method, so follow along. Should be pretty easy, take a couple hours to do. With basic tools, just hand tools and drill bit. Come along, let's have some fun. As you can see, the first step here I took, I set up a little hose on the bottom of the radiator to direct the antifreeze, and I opened the drain on that. Gotta drain some of the antifreeze down so it doesn't all run into the cabinet when we take the hoses off. So do this ahead of time. It'll help us mid-project so that we don't have such a mess on the floor. I'm going to use probably a cake pan or something to catch the little bit of coolant that will be in the hoses. So step one, here we go. As I said previous, we're working on a 2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Looking at the glove box right now, off to this side here. That's where the heater core is. It's behind the heater controls. A little different than the previous model, the WJ. So going to involve taking this bottom panel out. I pulled the screws out of this one already, I think. Yep. Get that panel out of the way. Toss that aside. I anticipate there's a lot of screws and stuff with all of this, so I've got me a magnetic tray. I'm setting here on the cup holders so I can keep track of all the screws so they don't all get lost. Ugh. One good way to clean out the glove box is dump it all on the floor. Tuner, of course, most of us already have those. A lot of people forget, if you got a tuner, you can always check your codes. O'Reilly's receipts. Now when you're getting ready to take these out, you can see there's these little tabs here. There's one there, there's one here. Push those tabs down and that'll allow the glove box to fold down, in case you didn't know that already. Now for all of you wondering, I know out there's always questions about how do I get to my resistor, heater resistor, blower resistor, blower controls. Why is my blower always staying on no matter what I do, or the blower doesn't work at all? Chances are you have a bad blower controller, which happens to be when you take the glove box out. You can see You see the mess of wires right there? Yep. That's the blower motor resistor, commonly called. Sometimes this wire here, this goes down to the blower motor itself, so it gets hot and gets fried. But yep, that's where it comes from. There's two screws in there, Torx head. Pop it out, put a new one in. You can get them for about, I don't know, 45 bucks at O'Reilly's or something like that, or 40 bucks off Amazon, wherever you go. For this job, you're going to need a handful of tools. I'm starting out with a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and I've got a homemade tool that I use for popping panels. Pretty easy to make. This came in a set of cheap Chinese tools, screwdriver set. It was supposed to be like a nail puller, but I just stuck it in a vise and used the vice grips, and I bent a offset in it, and I took my angle grinder, I cut the notch in it. Works good for those little Christmas tree plugs that a lot of panels and a lot of vehicles are put together with, including these. If you don't already have one, why not? A lot of interior panels I just put on with clips nowadays. Not like the old days when you had to... everything was screwed on. See, I'm popping all this trim out here around the shifter. One nice thing about taking all this trim out, you know, most of us eat or a little fast food once in a while, or drinking our soda in our truck and stuff. Sometimes it gets spilt, you know, it just fizzes or whatever, whatnot, just daily grime. These panels get pretty dirty. That was a good time to clean them too. With your favorite cleaner. I like using simple green or mean green. Usually that cuts through the dirt pretty good. All that soda and whatnot. For those of you that don't know, this panel up here for many of you that don't know, this panel here, that just pops out too. I use my little tool, go in between, pop it, get behind it, pop it out. This is a limited model, so everything is just plugs on the back. as you can see. That's done, set that aside. Also on the side here, you have to have door open. You got to take that side panel out. There's a couple of screws in here too, because we have to take this whole bottom gray piece off. Radio out. Okay, I'm going through the hole of the glove box, looking up in here. Just give me a second here to get an eyeball. See, there's a screw there and a screw there. Those two screws have to come out. Why? Well, I'll show you. When you're looking at your dash, this passenger side dash, it's two different colors here. It's split. In order to get this bottom panel out, those two screws are right back here. And you have to take those two so you can separate this bottom panel out, so you can get this bottom panel out of the way. We're trying to get to that area behind the heater controls, which that heater core sits right in here. In fact, there's a little, see this little black thing here? That's where all your heater lines run from the engine back there. They follow around here and into the heater box up here. That's where we're trying to get to. Not real easy to get up in there, but get my hand up in here. I've got a 1/4-inch drive socket set. I'm using a 7mm socket, or it could be a 9/32, which is the same size as a 7mm. Get up there just to knock them loose. Once they're loose, you can turn them out by hand. You can see I got those two out. The dash should be loose now. This part here is loose from this part, so we should be able to pry this out a little bit, pull this down, and get it out of the way. One thing you can't really see very well here, but you can see these two are connected. Or behind here, there's little snap clips I popped loose, but this gray piece goes all the way across the dash. This connected to this. I'm just going to take a tin snips in the middle here behind this gray part, cut it there. Also going to cut it right down here, same spot. That way I can get it out of the way. I know you people are going, Mr. Tiny, that's the wrong way to do that. Well, I don't want to pull the whole dash out. So, Mr. Tiny is going to do this way. That's why I'm doing the cheap method, not pulling the whole dash out. Apparently I missed a couple screws. Well, look at that. There's a couple screws there yet. When you're working on this stuff, sometimes you gotta tug and pull a little bit, and then wherever it doesn't seem to be tugging or pulling very well, usually you missed a screw. Story of our lives, we always miss a good screw. I know it's kind of hard to see. Kind of hard for me to get everything all in the frame, so the plastic piece is out of the way. Now we're getting somewhere. Take it just a second here. We'll talk about tools. You know, a lot of times you'll see me using power tools, especially when I'm working on suspension or engine stuff, and that's strictly to make everything faster. Most of the stuff can be done with hand tools in your driveway, in your garage. I like to cheat with a lot of stuff, so I make it go faster. That makes up for the time it takes to make all these videos and commentaries and all the behind the scenes stuff you guys don't get to see. But at this point, we're pretty close to getting to the dirty stuff and getting the heater core, but taking a second here, we'll talk about some tools. As you can see by my floor, I don't have a lot of tools out. Like I said, I got just a flat screwdriver, flat regular standard screwdriver. Got my trusty Craftsman Phillips. I get a stubby little Phillips for getting in them tight spots. Got a 1/4-inch drive ratchet with a socket. That's a 7mm socket, but you can also use 9/32, it's the same size. Taking out all these dash screws, if you look at them, you can see they're Phillips, but they're also a 7mm hex head. Got this out just so I could split the dash in the middle. You can see I cut right there, and I cut it behind there. Just so I can get that plastic out of the way. And then I got a trusty little light. This one I happened to get off Amazon. Maybe I'll put a part in the description, but it's I don't know, 300 lumen COB. Runs on 3 AAAs, but I went and bought 3 chargeables for it right away. Very handy having these little lights. This one's aluminum, it's got a magnet on it. They fit in tight spots, they illuminate, they're very bright. Directional. Making videos, I gotta have lots of light anyway, so that works good. Take a step out here. Sometimes I need a little extra light, just a cheap light from COB, from local hardware store. This is very bright too. And I've got one of these. This thing, I don't know, I paid $5 for it, but it seems to last forever on 3 AA's. I've forgotten to shut it off and come back the next day and it was still on, so pretty amazing for a $5 light. Got a couple magnets on it. I use that quite often too, you'll see in the videos. And that was our 2 minutes for tools. You can see my little magnetic tray there with all the screws in it. So now we'll get back to there and pulling them parts out so we can get to that heater. Might be a little bit hard to see from this angle here, but this is the bottom where the bottom of the glove box attaches to. There's 2 spot welds in here. Kind of hard to see, but yeah, they're there, trust me. And we're going to drill those 2 spot welds out with a drill bit. What we're looking at here right now is where the heater core is. It goes right in here. There's a bracket right in here just at the top of the view, and then this, and both those we'll probably have to bend a little bit to get them out of the way after we drill the spot welds out. And then we can get this panel off here. There's some Torx in here. Like I said, this is a limited, so it's got the dual zone heater control. Right here is the heater control motor, or the one of the door control motors. This will have to get pulled out of the way. I've got a T20 Torx driver. You see this on my finger? No, that's not blood. That's antifreeze. You can see the good indication that this heater core is starting to leak. This truck has 237,000 miles on it, so I'm not surprised. It's probably the original. If somebody has problems or decides they don't want to make the modifications I've done, well, then your only option is to pull the whole dash out, which I can guarantee is going to take a whole lot more time than what I'm spending here. I use a small drill bit first to drill some pilot holes. It keeps the big drill bit from walking all over the place. Now I'm going with a bigger one. Drill the welds out. I know, now what do? You drilled the spot welds out. You got two big holes there. Well, now that you got holes, all you got to do is put some bolts in those when you want to put it back together. So, win-win, right? I suppose you could lay out a blanket and get the welder out and fill the holes with weld again, but you might have to do this again in the future, and then what do? That's why I'm going to have to put bolts back in there when it comes time to put it together. But we got to keep moving forward. We don't have that heater core changed yet. I'm sure I don't have to remind you guys, but I will anyway. All those holes you drilled, they're going to be real sharp, so be careful. You don't want to cut your fingers open and bleed all over your interior. That just adds time to cleaning up your mess. A little twist that way, a little twist this way. I think this we can push up. That should give us enough room to get the heater core out. Look at that. There it is. Quick, while I'm thinking of it, and all of you people are going, "Hey, Mr. Tiny, I just drilled all those spot welds out. I've got iron all over the floor of my Jeep. What do I do now? I can't vacuum it out very well." Well, remember that light I told you about? Got a nice magnet on it. I just use that to pick up all those iron filings. Goes pretty quickly, it works good. Just take that over to the garbage and sweep it off. Got a T25 here. Torx. Heater tubes. There's a T20 right below that blower resistor we talked about earlier. This funnel works just right. It's catching all the antifreeze and channeling it to my kick pan here, which is slowly filling up. But at least it's not running all over the floor. Now, if if yours has been leaking for a while, or if it's leaking worse, your floor is probably already full of antifreeze, and you're going to have to use a wet dry vac to vacuum it out. Mine ain't that wet here. There was only a couple little dribbles really on the inside. I'm trying to keep it that way. That's why I'm using a funnel and a cake pan. You can see up here is the heater resistor we were talking about earlier. Here's where that Torx was I had to take out that holds those heater lines up. And follow those around back to there. It's almost done draining, it looks like. Well, I was doing pretty good not making a mess. And it's out. You saw my foot in there. I had a little push on that metal a little bit to get it out of the way. A little twisting, prying. It doesn't look like the actual core itself was leaking. Chances are it was probably the seal in between the plastic tank and the aluminum. That's where they usually leak. And I would imagine that's the case here too. I've got a Spectra replacement. 93022 is the part number. Back in it goes. Put these up there before they start leaking, making a mess all over the place. Now we're going to do everything that we did to take it apart. We're going to put it all back together. Try to do it in the same order. Or close to. There goes the light. Everything is slippery now because it's all covered in antifreeze. Went and washed my hands. Got rid of some of that antifreeze that I had all over them. Now maybe I can hang on to tools and such. Start putting this thing back together. Now, if you got a battery-operated nut driver, a lot of this stuff goes a lot faster. Just remember, you don't want to over-torque these. It's not, these screws are just like wood screws. They don't take a lot. Putting the vent door actuator back on. I believe this one controls the heat and the cool. Don't quote me on it, I didn't look it up. Plug that back in. Okay, you can see I pulled all this metal back into place. All those holes we drilled. Now we got a place to put a bolt. I'm just using some regular 1/4-inch bolts here. Now with the bolt back in there, you can see dash is all back together. Nice and solid again. They use spot welds because it's cheaper than bolts. But what's a couple of bolts for us, you know, you go to the hardware store and you spend like 50 cents on 2 really short 1/4-inch bolts and a couple of lock washers and a couple of nuts. And we're putting it all back together. Nobody will know the difference. Except for you. And well, all of you watching will know the difference here, but once the plastic on, you can't see it, so here we go. We'll keep right on going here. Stuff always seems to go in a whole lot Stuff always seems to go in a whole lot easier when you're putting it back together than it does when you're trying to take it apart. And you're scratching your head, going, why won't this come out? You know you've done it. I know I have. You find all kinds of new names for your Jeep, for your favorite project. The rest is just putting all those screws back in that you took out. Try and remember where you took them out from. There's probably a few you'll choose not to put back in just because they're a pain in the butt. I'm going to attempt to put them all back in. Yeah, you remember those 2 bolts from the back of the dash? That's next. Turn them in by hand. They're really not that bad. They're just, once you put your hands in there, you can't really see, so you got to see with your fingers. By feel. My experience has been a lot of auto mechanic work gets done that way, especially when you're working on engines and stuff. Them 2 are kind of important. That keeps them 2 pieces right up here just out of sight. Here, let me scroll you guys up. So it helps keep these two panels from rattling, keeps them tight together. Otherwise you get a gap in there. Especially if you're one of those people who like put your feet against the dash here. So next we can go back to working on the dash here. All that stuff we took apart we can put back in. These radios are kind of heavy. You can see right down here that's where I cut it. I think it's hidden behind all the heater controls anyway, so good spot I think. That all snaps back in. Radio's all back in, covered up. I'm going to go wash the trimmer on the shifter. I'll be right back. A little scrub-a-dub-dub over in the sink and looks like new again. Wow. Clean the chrome up, even the chrome looks like brand new. Amazing what a little soap and water can do. don't know, you guys can see, a lot of us got that problem. Not much we can do about it. There you have it. It's all back together. Oh, I guess we ought to put the glove box back in too, huh? And that's that. All done. I know you guys thought there for a second, what about the antifreeze? Didn't he drain it? How does he fill it? Yep. Take this hose off. Close this radiator. Drain valve back up. All closed up. Now I got a pan full of antifreeze. What do I do with that, huh? Stand by, we'll watch. Now I know everybody's wondering, what about antifreeze? Most of you catch it in a pail or something. We've got a big pan we catch it in, which, to be honest, it used to be a cover for a spare tire on a van. You all remember back in the day, vanning was a thing. You had all those conversion vans with nice tires. People used to paint murals on the back of their tire covers. Yeah, that's what this is. Just a tin tire cover. Works really good. Been around here forever. Some of you millennials might not understand vanning. I'm a little older than millennial, so I remember those. Alright, it took a while. It took me almost about 45 minutes, almost an hour to bleed all the air out of the cooling system to get that heater core to fill, so I could get some heat. I didn't think it was going to take that long, but, well, shit happens, I guess, right? Yep, it's working. It ain't leaking. I'm calling it a job well done, and it's time to head home for some supper. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I helped you out, and if I did, go ahead, give me a thumbs up. Hit that little subscribe button down there if you didn't do it at the beginning of the video like I asked, and come back and see me again. You'll probably watch another video or two. Thanks. See you later.